In this problem, we have a switch that moves from position A to position B at time t equals 0. We want to identify which circuit elements are in series and parallel for both t less than 0 and t greater than 0. We have two different time periods, and the switch is in two different positions. This essentially means that we're going to be analyzing two different circuits. I find that it's usually best to treat them individually. So first, let's take a look at the circuit for t less than 0. During this time period, the switch is at position A. Personally, I like to redraw the circuit. It takes a little extra time, but it keeps you from getting confused. When the switch is at position A, this becomes a short circuit, and the circuit looks like this. Let's find series elements. For series elements, we're going to do KCL, and what we want are nodes that are connected to only two elements. If I identify all of the nodes in the circuit, this is a node, this is a node, and this is a node. This node connects elements 2, 4, and 5. This node connects elements 1, the 6-volt source, 4 and 5, and element 3, not that that really matters, and this node here connects elements 1, the 6-volt source, and 2. None of the nodes in this circuit connect only two elements, so there are no series elements. Now let's look for parallel elements. For parallel elements, I want to do KVL, and I want to find loops that go through only two elements. If I go through this loop here, that passes only through elements 1 and the 6-volt source. So loop 1 has only two elements. And if I loop over here, loop 2 only goes through elements 4 and 5. So this means that the elements in loop 1, so element 1 and the 6-volt source, are in parallel. And loop 2 goes through elements 4 and 5, so elements 4 and 5. Now let's redo the problem with the switch in position B. For t greater than 0, first I'll redraw the circuit with the switch in the correct position. The switch now connects elements 2 and 3 and is an open circuit between these two terminals. Let's look for series elements first. So what I'm trying to do is identify nodes where only two elements are connected. This node here now only connects nodes 2 and 3. Since the current through an open circuit is 0 amps, any current going through element 2 will also go through element 3, and those two are in series. Likewise, this node connects only elements 4 and 5. Again, this is 0 amps, so any current going through one of these has to also go through the other. This means that elements 2 and 3 are in series, and elements 4 and 5 are in series. Now let's look for parallel elements. As before, I'm looking for loops that go through only two elements. If I can create a loop that goes through only two elements, those two elements are in parallel. As with t less than 0, this loop only goes through elements 1 and the 6-volt source. That means that element 1 and the 6-volt source are in parallel. If I loop over here, this loop also goes through only two elements, element 4 and element 5, which means that elements 4 and 5 are also in parallel. Notice that elements 4 and 5 are in both series and parallel. Being in series and parallel are not necessarily mutually exclusive. They can be both, or they can be neither.